most relevant. By raise of hands, who's heard of Child and Family Services before? Oh, okay, good. So not to be confused with the Department of Children and Families, which is DCF. I know sometimes people get us confused. But Child and Family Services is a nonprofit organization that provides all sorts of services to members of the community. So I'm just going to start by going a little bit into who we are. Sorry, the writing's kind of small on the screen there. But we are one of the oldest nonprofit organizations and has the oldest adoption program in southeastern Massachusetts. So there is a long history in terms of how it got started in New Bedford, and we kind of started with children who were homeless, who had lost their parents, and providing those adoption services to those kiddos. But of course, we've expanded over time. The agency added a mental health clinic and family support office on the Cape in 1995. And I don't know if anybody's aware, but we actually technically have two offices here on Cape Cod. So we have our main office in Hyannis, which is the office that I'm out of. We also have a small office in Harwich. So, yeah, so it's very small. We only have a handful of clinicians that work out of that office. It's more of like a satellite office. But if anybody's ever interested in getting services set up at Child and Family, you would want to go through the Hyannis office. But we do have another office in Harwich.
Oh,
yeah.
Where are you located in Hyannis?
We are on 100 Independence Drive.
Is that on your note sheet?
Yep, and I also have some pamphlets in the back as well. The address should be on there. Yep. So our mission is to heal and strengthen the lives of children and families. We continue to work both internally and with community partners to find new and better ways to help people overcome problems and find strength within their family circle. And we always say we serve clients ages 2 to 102. So even though I know our name can be a little misleading, we do work a lot with children and youth, but we also work across the lifespan. We have plenty of clients who are middle-aged, who are elderly. We have, we work with families. So really, the clientele varies so much. It really is just dependent on the need. Yeah, so that's just a little bit about us and who we are, just to kind of give you a little bit of info there. So this might be what most people are kind of interested in hearing in terms of the services that we provide, which I'm going to go a little bit into. So we are technically an urgent care center. So what that means is that anybody can come in, and if they're really struggling and they have an urgent need, we try to get them in as soon as possible. We usually try to schedule an intake that same week, even the next day if we can. So really, as soon as somebody walks through our door, we're immediately assessing what the need is, which kind of brings me to the walk-in referral process that we have. You do not need a formal referral to receive services through Child and Family. Anybody who's interested can walk through the door, come to the front desk and say, I want to sign up for counseling. I want to sign my child up for counseling, whatever that might look like. And we get things started right away. So there is a process. You start filling out what we call the pre-screening packet. That's where we gather just basic demographic information in terms of who you are, what brings you in, it asks other, questions, but we're also assessing for safety and risk, which is how we know whether somebody might be a routine, we call it like a routine referral, or an urgent referral, or whether it's an emergent situation, which I'll kind of get into that as well. So as soon as somebody walks through the door, we're immediately assessing what kind of situation this person is in, and whether they need to be in as soon as possible, or whether it's just a routine. So kind of going in a little bit to that. So if we consider somebody a routine referral, it means that somebody's feeling as though they might need support and they're experiencing challenges throughout their daily functioning. It is impeding on their daily life in some way, but not to the point that they might be in an emergency or unsafe type of situation, if that makes sense. So that's a lot of times, those are the types of cases that do walk through the door, although we also have urgent situations. So with the urgent situations, it might be somebody starting to experience more intense challenges, including thoughts of self-harm, or they could have recently been discharged from a hospital, usually like a mental health hospital. They were receiving mental health services. So it's not on the verge, it's not urgent, is not where somebody's exhibiting active suicidal ideation, but they are starting to have some concerning thoughts and they might be engaging in more risky behaviors. The step after that would be what we would would call emergent. So we do not take emergent situations at Child and Family. We do have a partner in the community, BACO, if anybody's ever heard of them, who they are the ones that would handle emergent situations. So when you think of emergent, you think somebody is at imminent risk. Either they're at risk or somebody else is at risk because of the struggles that they're having. So maybe we're talking about suicidal ideation, we're talking about homicidal ideation, things that most people might not be very open about or open to talk about. And I think that just kind of goes to the stigma a little bit that we had talked about earlier, right? People might kind of skirt around the phrase suicidal. They might say, well, I'm having thoughts of self-harming. Well, what does that mean? So we try to dig into that a little bit just to see whether somebody could be having suicidal thoughts or not. And if so, and they're active, then that would be when we would refer them to BACO for the emergent situations. So again, as soon as somebody's walking through our door, we're immediately assessing what that risk is. Does anybody, oh, yeah.
That agency that you said was that the initials for it?
Baycove.
Baycove.
Oh, he's asking if Baycove is that the name or is it that the abbreviated, like initials?
BACO is the name of the organization that deals with the emergent. BACO. Yeah.
B-A-Y-C-O.
I'm going to have their information up on the screen. That's why I wanted to get the visual in here because I will have some of
Here
their
I thought you said VCO or.
No, B-A-Y, Bay, and then Cove, C-O-V, BACO. Yeah.
Baycove,
Yep,
okay.
and they're the agency in the area that deals with the emergent situations. They actually can even, like, they do mobile crisis as well, so they can actually come to your home. I know we talked about that earlier. A lot of times if somebody has exhibited, active suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation, we're actually supporting clients and calling them before they leave our office. We'll give them that option. Hey, do you want us to sit with you? We can give you their information. We can sit and while you call, we can sit here with you. And we're providing that support if somebody needs it. And of course, depending on how the evaluation at Baycove turns out, we can still meet with them as well for ongoing services. But we want to make sure that they're getting connected to those emergent services first to maintain safety.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, the walk-in referral process, the whole goal is we're really trying to eliminate barriers to people receiving services. We understand how hard, especially down here on Cape, how hard it is for people to get services. So that's one way that we're trying to make services as easily accessible as possible. I will say our new process has made it pretty easy for people to get in and start receiving services right away for outpatient therapy. There's a little disclaimer there though, it depends on how flexible your schedule is. We have what we call peak hours, which is when everybody wants to come in. It's after work, after school hours. If those are the only, usually we say it's like 2 to 3 o'clock or later. If that is the only time that you have available and you don't have that flexibility in your schedule, you might be on a short wait list. You might not be able to get in right away, but if you have the availability to come in earlier during the off-peak hours, we usually can get you in right away. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about the walk-in referral process?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
We actually had our daughter with one of your clinicians, Becca.
Okay.
And it was so quick and easy. I was really surprised. She had a neuropsych done. She had everything done. She had the therapeutic mentor. So it was like she got in.
Yes.
We had the therapy, and then we had the therapeutic mentor, and then she kind of just transitioned out.
Yeah.
It was an amazing, quick, speedy process, and it was very helpful.
Good.
So our experience with them was amazing, actually.
That's
My
great.
kid still talks about her.
Good.
We adopted her, and she just, she still says, I wonder how Becca is, Mom. I'm like, I don't know. We should call her.
Becca's doing well. She's still with us. Yeah.
Good.
She's still with us. But I'm so happy to hear that. And that is just it, is we don't want people waiting around for months and months if they don't have to be. We want to make sure that they're getting those services they need. And we do have other services, which I'll get into as well, which is what you're speaking to in terms of other services that we can connect families to. We don't have a psychologist on hand who does testing, but we know about the providers in the area. So if you need help making a referral for further psychological testing, we can help connect people to that. If you're interested in in-home therapy or therapeutic mentoring services, we actually offer that through Child and Family as well. So we can help get things started there, help you put the referral in to get those added services as well. Which I'll talk more about those.
They had the tune-up too, remember, like after it's done, you can always go back if you need extra care and
Yeah,
everything like
yeah,
that also.
yeah.
Absolutely. So if you decide for either because progress is being made and you're feeling better and you don't need it anymore, or, just, voluntarily, you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, you can always walk back in. That's the beauty of our walk-in referral process. So even if somebody decides to discontinue services, they can walk back in the next day if they want, and they can get everything restarted again. I will say we'll have to go through all the paperwork once we've officially discharged somebody, which there is some paperwork that comes along with it, with the intake process, but yes, you can always re-engage if you ever need to.
And what's the charge for people?
Well, they took Mass Health for us, so.
Yep, that's a great
That's how-
question. So we're insurance driven, which means we do go through people's insurances.
Right, okay.
So we have a combination of both licensed and clinicians who aren't licensed yet, but they're going towards licensure.
Right.
So depending on what a clinician's credentials are, will determine what insurance they can take. But we do have licensed clinicians that can take commercial private insurance. We also have clinicians who can take Mass Health insurance. If for some reason, if you have a private or commercial insurance and there's a copay, you might owe that. That would be something that you would get, and you get information from your insurance provider about. But yeah, we go through insurances.
Okay, do you use, people that are in college, do you use the ones that are, going in for psychology or psychiatric,
Oh, like an intern. We do have some
Thank you,
interns on
that's the
staff.
word.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have some interns on staff, but we would never place somebody with an intern without telling them. So if that's somebody, if the intern is who has availability, we would give you that option. Hey, we do have somebody available. It is an intern. Are you comfortable with that? I will say sometimes interns are even better because
Yes,
they're getting
yeah.
so much supervision from all the licensed supervisors that there's good care happening there.
Yeah, I went to Independence House for 2 years.
Okay.
And I had a wonderful, wonderful student
Yeah.
that made a difference in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. The students are great, the interns are great as well, and sometimes the interns end up actually working for us. They end up
Wow.
sticking around, so it's kind of cool.
How long have you been in business?
For child and family, so
Yeah.
we've been on Cape since 1995, but child and family has been ongoing since like the late 1800s, and that's when we had started as the children's supporting children who. In New Bedford, there's a big fishing population.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, there were parents who would maybe, go off to sea and they wouldn't come back. And then there were these children that were left without parents or without homes. And so we ended up helping to support the children back then that didn't have a home. That's how they had started as like an adoption type center.
I used to work with the Salvation Army, so I used to send people to you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's about empowerment and not being pressured into making decisions and kind of putting the power back with the kids or them to make their decision of how they feel comfortable about doing this. And when they feel comfortable like that, then they can start gaining that trust with the client and the clinician and everything like that. Be able to open up more where it's not so much pressure like, you better do this, you gotta do this like this or something like that, And it pushes a lot of people away when they feel they don't have that much power to make a decision like that.
Absolutely, and we do try to empower clients and children and families, right? We try to give them the power. We don't make decisions for them. We can give them recommendations and we can tell them what our opinion is or what our professional opinion or recommendation is, but we've never forced anybody in any service or to do anything. So really, you're absolutely right, yeah. So a big portion, the program that I work out of is the outpatient counseling. We provide individual counseling, again, to all ages. We also have some therapists who will do some family and couples therapy as well. So those are also options. We've also recently started, part of the reason that brought me on board here on Cape is to help start outreach counseling in the schools. So that's something that we have in New Bedford where we're able to have clinicians assigned to different schools in the area, and the schools provide us with confidential spaces to actually provide counseling to kids in school, which will help to eliminate barriers with work schedules, after school schedules, transportation, whatever it might be. And so we actually are in some of the schools already down here. We're at Monomoy School, so we're at Harwich and Chatham Elementary School and Monomoy Middle School. We're also at Truro Central School. And we're actually, we've recently got confirmation that Falmouth and Nauset schools are also interested in our services. So we're hoping to get started in there as well. Yeah, so it's a process, but kind of you can keep your eyes out for that. We are trying to get into the schools as long as they want us there. We also
Are you
have.
involved with Cape Cod Tech at all?
We are not. No, we're not. There is another agency, Gosnold, who is in
Oh,
some of the
Gosnold, yeah.
schools. I don't know if they're at Cape Cod Tech, but I know they are doing some of the school-based work too.
Yeah, yeah.
But we are not in there yet, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
Like I said, if there's a school who's interested in these services, they can always reach out to me directly and we can let them know whether we're able to accommodate. But that's the hope, is we're really trying to eliminate barriers to treatment for people. Yeah. We also have, I know, we had spoke a little bit about some of the outreach the outreach programs as well. So we also have in-home therapy and therapeutic mentoring out of the Hyannis office. So in-home therapy is a little bit more intense, I would say, than just regular family therapy. So you would have a team that comes into the home that works with the family to provide support. There is usually an identified client, usually the child, but they work with the whole family. They provide supports to parents, they provide recommendations, so it's a little bit more intense than just like the outpatient family therapy, but it's a great service that a lot of people love and utilize. We also have therapeutic mentoring, which is where we have staff that actually will take kids out into the community, usually for a couple hours a week. Kids usually love it because they're not just sitting in a session room talking one-on-one with a therapist. The therapeutic mentor is actually like taking them out into the community, but still working on those therapeutic goals that the therapist has identified, in the family has identified as a need.
And is that an age group as well too for just about any
So
age?
it's usually, they say about 5 to up until about 20. I will say it really varies because there might be certain kids who might not be appropriate to be taken out into the community if they're, exhibiting maybe unsafe behaviors or they can't maintain safety in the community. So it is a case-by-case basis, but usually around between the ages of 5 to 20 is when somebody can have a therapeutic mentor. One thing I will add about the therapeutic mentoring services is that they do have to have another provider in place in order to receive them. It's not a standalone service. So what that means is there needs to either be an individual therapist or in-home therapy or another service which is called intensive care coordination or CSA. It's part of the CSA program that they can report back to. They call it a hub, which means again that the therapeutic mentor has to touch base with this professional in order to continue services, so that they can kind of get some guidance in terms of what goals need to be worked on and what therapeutic interventions might be helpful. Yeah. So again, those are in-home therapy and therapeutic mentoring we have at Child and Family here on Cape as well. Any questions about any of those services?
I think it's important, and you probably agree, that you do engage with the whole family.
Yes.
It's not just the parent saying, I don't know what's wrong with my kid.
Right.
Because the kid has probably got something wrong with them because the parent's got something wrong with them.
And that can sometimes be the case. I mean,
It's like the child can be a mirror of their parents.
we really do, we try to make it clear right from the beginning. If a parent is signing their child up for therapy, we try to make that expectation clear from the beginning. We want parents to be engaged. It's not this, we don't live in this kind of like empty vessel where it's like, oh, we just have to focus on the kid, and if we, teach them all these strategies and interventions, everything will be fine, right? Because we know that the family plays such a huge role in the child's life. I mean, the child is at home a lot of the time, or we even try to sometimes coordinate with the school if there are issues happening in school and the family's okay with it. We can get releases signed to speak with the school. Let's say there's bullying going on and the family's okay with us talking to the school counselor. We can get a release signed to talk to the school counselor about issues that might be happening in the school and ways to support the child. So we really value including anybody who the family and kiddo has identified as being important in their life as, trying to be involved in treatment if it's appropriate. And again, the parents would have say in that. If the child is underage, we would have a release signed to speak to whoever they might identify as being an important connection for that kiddo.
Hey, Paul, not only that, right, when, from our experience when we was there with our daughter, we was building a relationship with me and my daughter because we had little conflicts with each other. So we'd meet with the counselor first, and then we'd meet with my daughter, and then we have a conflict resolution, like how we can build a relationship with each other better so we won't be fighting and coming at each other so much like that, like meeting at a common ground with them like that. So
That's a good thing.
they helped us with that right there.
The child doesn't want to feel like they're being singled out. The child wants to, it's all a family unit.
It's all about taking responsibility, like the grown-up taking responsibility for their actions on how they provoking their children, and the children taking responsibility of their actions, how they provoking their parents also like that. So it's like both going back and forth like that, where the kid has a voice and like I'm being listened to.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely help to strengthen, even for an individual therapist, if the child is the client and they're identifying and the family's identifying that there are some struggles with communication between like parents and child, the individual therapist can step in as long as, the child and the parents are okay with that to facilitate a little bit. If the therapist has identified that there might be more an intense need, maybe family therapy would be a better option, or in-home therapy. So it's kind of assessing the situation too.
Laura, can you handle any other languages? Do you have some interpreters, or could you access them if you needed to?
That's a great question. So we do have somebody on staff who can sign, so she does sign language. She's fluent in that. But other than that, no. We do have translator services though that we can utilize.
That's what I mean, you can access.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we do use a translation service that we can utilize. We can use it through telehealth. If somebody meets with us virtually, we can do it over the phone. We again would kind of assess. We would never turn anybody away because we can't speak their primary native language. We would give them that option and then kind of determine whether they were comfortable with it, whether it was appropriate for treatment, or whether it was getting in the way of treatment at all. Yeah. Yep. Good question, though.
Yeah. There's also technology with the phones where someone can speak into the phone and then it translates to the person that they're talking to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's that option as well.
My wife and I watch a police program on television, and they do that a lot. They'll stop somebody who doesn't speak English, and they'll talk into the phone and then translate immediately right there.
Yep. Yeah. There's lots of great resources out there now. Yeah. So those are just some of the services that we provide at Child and Family. So I know that we had talked a little bit about this earlier, but this is just some examples of when somebody may want to seek help, or if you're noticing some of these things in a loved one, when you might want to encourage them to seek help. So I'll kind of go through it if anybody has any questions. Again, I know we kind of reviewed this a little bit earlier, but so in terms of thoughts of self-harm or suicide, homicidal thoughts, feelings of hopelessness, or a sense of unreality. For behavior, if somebody's acting out violently, if they're doing risky activities, if they're neglecting their personal hygiene, or their behavior is different than a person's norm, which again, I know we talked about earlier, right? If somebody's norm is not caring if they wear dirty clothes, then that might not be a concern. But if you're noticing a change in it, right, that's different than somebody's norm. Their mood, so if they're having extreme mood swings, if they're feeling more irritable or angry than usual, if they're feeling sad or depressed most of the time. Some social kind of indicators would be that they might be avoiding their friends or activities that they used to enjoy. They're not wanting to leave the house. They have difficulties between their personal relationships. So somebody who might be in conflict a lot with those, friends or family. For sleep, dramatic changes in sleep or having trouble sleeping. Concentration, I know we talked about, so not being able to concentrate. Noticing a difference with their memory, or even logical thinking, if you're starting to notice a difference in their logical thinking skills. Apathy, so a loss of initiative or desire to participate in activities, or just not really feeling much of anything. Substance use, of course, increasing or misusing alcohol or drugs in any way, shape, or form. That includes alcohol or drugs that are legal too, right? If somebody's kind of using those substances as a crutch, or you're noticing that they're using them more frequently, that could be an indicator that they might need some help. and drop in functioning. So an unusual drop or change in functioning at work, school, or social activities. So again, I know we had talked about that a little bit, but maybe, their performance at school is starting to change, or for an adult, they might be noticing their performance at work is starting to change. Those can be some indicators. So again, you can seek help for routine, urgent, or emergent needs. Do not wait until something becomes emergent to seek out help. If you're starting to notice some of these warning signs and it's considered what we would call routine, seek help, because we can address it before it gets to the point that it's emergent. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions about this? Again, I know we reviewed a lot of it earlier, but. All right, so this is when I'm going to talk a little bit more about just who to call for help and how you know who to call for help. So for a mental health emergency, which again I have called the emergent cases, that would be, somebody's at imminent risk of harm in some way, Bay Cove. So the information's there. If you all can't see it, you can come and seek me out after. I can give you the information after as well. They have 24/7 mobile crisis support. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. They're there constantly. Like I said, they can do mobile crisis services as well, so they can come to you if need be. But they would be the resource for emergent situations if somebody's having a mental health emergency. So the phone number, in case people can't read it, it's 833-229-2683.
833-229.
Yeah, 2683. Yep. For urgent or routine ongoing mental health treatment, of course, you can call us, or you don't even have to call. You can walk through our door when we're open, and we can get things started for you right then and there. Like I said, we'd start the pre-screening process. We would get your insurance information, and we would get things started. And then after you come in to fill out that initial paperwork, we're getting that intake schedule for you to get things started. There are also other providers as well. I mean, some people can also find ongoing therapists on like Psychology Today or things like that. So we're not the only provider for like the outpatient therapy as well. There are other like individual therapists who are licensed that are in the community that you can find online as well. All right, and so this is just the last slide I have here, just in terms of other supports on CAPE that maybe are not services that we specifically provide. You might have heard of some of these people before, or some of these agencies before. I think the important thing to know is that there are supports. Even though I know on CAPE it is harder to find supports, there are supports available to people. So we have JRI. JRI provides the service that I had talked about earlier, the ICC services, Intensive Care Coordination. That really is for the identified client is the child, but they work with the family as a whole, and usually it's for kiddos who are really struggling, that have higher needs, and there might be a lot of other providers involved. They help to coordinate everybody that's involved with this child and keep everybody on the same page. That's one of the biggest services, from my understanding, that they provide to people out in the community, but they also have a lot of other resources too. I think they have an after-school TAP program for kids that have like significant behavioral or emotional needs. They have a lot of other resources where, again, the child is usually the identified client, but they help to support the family as a whole in those ways. We also have Children's Cove. For anybody who's not familiar with Children's Cove, they specialize in helping children who have been identified as being a victim of sexual abuse or assault. So any child who you suspect could have been victimized in some way, especially, like I said, in a sexual nature, Children's Cove is a great resource for those kiddos and families. And then we have the Independence House, which I know we kind of talked about earlier as well. So the Independence House is a great resource for you can correct me if I'm wrong, but women who might have experienced domestic violence in some way, they can be a great support to those women and the children that are involved.
And any sexual assault.
Yeah.
You're given if it was sexual, you get 2 years of free therapy.
Okay.
And other than that, you get 1 year.
Yeah, so they can be a great resource for those types of situations. And then we have Gosnell, which I know I've talked about. They do, as far as I'm aware, I think they do some of the school-based programming. I don't know how many schools they're actually currently in down here for counseling, but what they're most known for is drug and substance use counseling. So if you know of anybody who might be struggling with that, they can be a great support for those individuals. And then the Family Resource Center, I mean, I
They're
know,
inpatient.
what is, I'm sorry?
They're inpatient.
They do have an inpatient part as well. They do, I think they also can do, you know, a detox treatment center as well. Yeah. And then the Family Resource Center, I know they have different ones in the area. I know the one in Hyannis, they have a lot of just general resources for families. So if anybody is in need of any type of resource or basic need, they can go there, and the Family Resource Center can kind of point you in the right direction. They also have different groups. So I know that they had groups for, you know, different for teens, for parents. I know at one point they even had a group for grandparents raising grandchildren. So they can be a great support, even if you just give them a call and say, hey, I was just kind of curious as to what groups you might be running right now. They do have supports like that at the Family Resource Center in Hyannis. So I think like I said, I think the takeaway with this is that, you know, there are other resources available. You know, of course ours, but outside of our realm, there are other agencies on Cape that can kind of help to support families with whatever they might be struggling with.
Thank you so much.
I know it's a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions at all for me?
Did you leave any brochures up there?
I have child and family brochures out there. It kind of gives a little snippet of the services.
The number on it.
I don't have one for Bay Cove.
Okay.
Yeah, but if anybody wants that, you can find them online, or I can,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to come to me after, I can give them that information. I don't have their
That's the
pamphlets,
question
so.
I was, with crisis team now, with the crisis team.
Yeah, they would be the crisis team on
Yeah.
Cape.
Oh, okay.
And if you're not sure which one is what you need, you can go to the Salvation Army and they'll help you figure out. And they send you to all those.
They can do that.
All right, awesome.
Wow.
Thank you so much. So much.
That is.
Well, thank you, Ms. Laura, thank you. And our next,
I think so, I think it should be so.
our next speaker is going to be Ms. Emma Blake, who is the case manager and advocate for Bloom. It's a place for girls in the short term.
Oh, yes.
Emma?
I'm gonna have a seat. So, I know you all kind of know a bit about Bloom, but I'm just gonna kind of give a generalized presentation about what Bloom is, what we do, and then give a couple of testimonies from past graduates, and then open it up for questions, because I really want to, answer any questions that you may have. So, first, just thank you for letting us come here. We always love being able to come out to churches and, really share about Bloom and about what we do and how, we could possibly be a service to the churches in the area. So, thank you for that. Like they said, my name is Emma. I am the case manager and biblical mentor at Bloom. I've been working at Bloom now for over a year and a half, and it's been an amazing experience and just an awesome way to really serve the ministry. So I'm sure you've heard of Adult and Teen Challenge. There's a lot of centers over the country, but there aren't as many teen programs as you may think. So we are actually, there's only, I think, 25 adolescent Adult and Teen Challenge programs in the country. And out of,
Really?
yes.
Oh,
yes.
my God.
And out of that number, we are only one of 2 short-term adolescent programs. So most of the programs, they are 12 to 15 months long, like the men's and women's centers that you may have heard of. But our program, we are a 3 to 5 month residential. So that means that the girls that come with us, they're there for only 3 to 5 months. It is residential. We've had girls come from all over the place. We've had girls come from Argentina, Canada, Alaska, everywhere around the U.S. We've had people come all over. So it's definitely, something that we want to continue to keep pushing and letting, communities know that there is that resource. So we are a program for adolescent girls ages 12 to 17, and we are a residential program. However, we are not a lockdown facility. So what that means is we are more of a home. So all of the students who enter our program, they do have to have a sort of willingness to at least be there. We like to say you don't have to be happy about it, but you do have to be willing. That's usually what it is. And so we get a lot of referrals through just our direct line in our office. A lot of times parents will, or even grandparents, aunts, uncles, a lot of the girls that we come in, they are in custody of their grandparent or their aunt because their parents are dealing with an addiction of their own. So we see a lot of girls come in who, are facing that kind of abandonment from, their parents and are having to be placed with other family members as well. We have a good portion of the girls who come in that have been adopted as well. A lot of the times, the students, I think, the girls that we have right now, do we have any right now? I don't think we do, but we've had a group of 6 girls and 4 out of the 6 were adopted. So it's definitely, we see girls from all different walks of life come through our doors. And when you hear of Adult and Teen Challenge, usually you think addiction. And while that is true, we do have girls come in with addiction. They also can come in struggling with a lot of other things, such as mental health, behavioral issues, exploitation, social media misuse, all sorts, you name it, we see it. So, addiction.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that sentence again? You do addiction plus mental health?
Yes, behavioral issues, exploitation, abandonment, social media misuse, abuse within the home. We see a lot of those. So we have kind of 3 main aspects to our program. We have the direct care. So our students are monitored 24/7. So that means even at night, we have someone sitting in the dorm watching over them, making sure they're, sleeping okay, making sure they have everything they need, and it's a way to keep them safe and to just kind of monitor their stay there as well. We take notes on how their day goes to kind of just observe how things are going. We also have a classroom portion as well. So they will do Adult and Teen Challenge curriculum that we provide. And that curriculum focuses on the problems that brought them there. And all the plans are very individualized for each student who walks through the door. So, if we have a girl who's coming in struggling with depression and anxiety, but hasn't really dealt much with substance abuse, well, then we'll focus more on that than we would with someone who has been struggling with substance abuse. So we do a very individualized plan for every student who walks through our doors. We are also partnered with a Christian school nearby, and they provide us some elective courses that the students will take while they're in our program so they can earn credits to bring back to their school at their home. So they're not too far behind in schooling, so it's not the normal math, English, science, but we do things like financial freedom, health and nutrition, civics, all that kind of stuff that they can earn up to 15 credits. We've had graduates who have been able to graduate 1.5 years early because of the fact that they were able to earn, amount of credits while they're there. And then we also do counseling within our program as well. And so there is the individual counseling. That is done a couple of times a week, and that is where, again, we do a very personalized treatment plan for every student. And so, we meet with the girls and we will give them assignments or books that kind of relate to some of the things that brought them into our program. We also do everything with a biblical base. That is our main focus, is introducing them to Jesus, helping them find their own identity in Christ. A lot of the times, we will have students come in who have grown up in the church and, serve on their worship team, but are still, struggling and don't really have the relationship with God or are struggling with even understanding what that is. And so that's something that we really focus on as well. We also do family counseling. That's done once a week over the phone because, we have people who come from all over. Can't have someone from Texas, coming in every Friday to do family counseling. But we always say to the girls, because we interview them before they come in, we always tell them that your parents are enrolled in this program as much as you are. So we have homework assignments for them. They'll be reading similar books that the girls are reading because we believe that it's very important for the families to be involved in their care because we want to make sure that while the girls are getting help and, growing themselves, that we are helping the family and the house that they will go back to grow as well. So when they do eventually complete the program, we have a better transition into that. So family counseling, it's done once a week over the phone. We do topics like communication, parenting, forgiveness, wisdom, really a good way to help restore relationships that are broken because a lot of the times the girls that are coming in do have broken relationships with their families because of the things that they are struggling with. And let's see. Bloom has been open for, I think we just had our 8-year anniversary in January.
8 years?
8 years, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So our director, Tori, she's been actually involved in Adult and Teen Challenge for over 23 years now. She was the director of the other short-term adolescent home in Arizona. And then she was a director there for many years, and then she felt God calling her to come to New England and to start the only second short-term residential program, which is now what we have as Bloom. So when we are having kind of the application process of student coming in, we want to make sure that the student is involved in knowing, when she's coming in. And so when the parents reach out to us or, grandparents or whoever has custody of the girls reach out to us, we have a process. We can't just take them in the next day. There is a process of making sure that they would be a good fit for our program, we would be a good fit for them, and that this is, the help that they need. So we have an application they'll fill out. We'll talk to the family and just kind of get their side of the story about what, the girl may be struggling with. And then we spend time talking to the girl as well, kind of just letting her know, hey, this is what we've heard you're struggling with. Can you tell me more about it? And we'll let them know kind of what the program's like. So when they are coming in, they're not, coming in blindly. Yeah.
About how long of a wait? Or is it just...
So we are a smaller program.
Right.
Right now, with the staffing that we have, we can only have up to 6 girls at a time.
Sure.
Yeah. So we do not believe in waiting lists. And so if we know that we're not going to have an opening for a really long time, we will help families find other placements as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, or if we believe that the student maybe is too far, like we cannot help them in that area that they're struggling with,
Right.
We will refer them elsewhere as well. So we want to make sure that we can help them find something. Even if it isn't us, we want to make sure that we can help them find,
So do you deal with like heroin addiction? Or is that a little too...
That we don't see as often. The common addiction that we see is vaping and weed.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So that's...
Vaping and weed.
That isn't good.
No,
So we have students come who have maybe struggled with some harder drugs, but most of the time the addictions that we are seeing is the vaping, the weed, social media. That's a huge
Right.
one. Especially the girls that are coming in. They were in elementary or middle school when COVID hit, and so our
Right.
life, all of a sudden just went all virtual, and that's what they're used to. So helping them learn how to even just function in life without needing that all the time is a big portion as well.
Have you seen a rise in fentanyl?
Yes, that has been a rise, especially a lot of the times now. Marijuana is a lot different than what it used to be. It's a lot more. There's a lot more chemicals in it now, and a lot of the times it ends up being laced with fentanyl.
Oh my God.
Yes, which can be very dangerous. So we do see that a lot more often than we have in the past. So, any other questions before I continue? I don't want to like cut anyone off. Okay, great. Yeah, so next I'm just going to share a couple testimonies from past graduates, about how Bloom has, really impacted their life. So we have had this one girl who was living with her dad and her stepmom. She had grown up with her mom, but her mom was in deep addiction. And so she was taken away from her mom when she was around 6. And she was given full custody to her dad and her stepmom. And so she started struggling as she got older. She started struggling with hanging out with the wrong crowd. She started smoking. She started, skipping school and just, being really defiant to her dad and not wanting to really do anything. She started to get into weed and was just going down a really dark path. And so her family had reached out to us, and she ended up going to Bloom, and we were able to minister to her and really help her work through, the abandonment of her mother and the neglect that she had faced when she was younger. And then during her time at Bloom, she had mentioned that she really wanted to see her mom work through her own addiction. She's like, I want to have a relationship with my mom, but I know that right now, I can't because of her addiction. I'm going to try and reach out to her after I graduate and see if maybe she'll go into Adult and Teen Challenge. So she finishes the program in about 4.5 months. And then we have graduation every 3 weeks. And at graduation, she comes up to us and she says, I wrote a letter to my mom, and she's going into the women's home at Adult and Teen Challenge.
Oh, praise
So,
God.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Her mom just recently graduated from the women's home. We got to see her walk the stage.
That must make you feel so
Yes, which was amazing. And her and that girl are now working on restoring their relationship. And they were both able to really find, hope in Adult and Teen Challenge. And that was just, really a blessing. Because our job at Bloom is, we plant the seed and we water it. And we may not see the growth until, after they've gone and graduated. But it is amazing to be able to see, the progress that they've made since, being in the program, and even how it impacts their family as well.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I wanted to ask is, so it seems as if you only deal with them from like 12 to 17, but you are able to help them to place their like parents or whoever else who's older within from that age group into other homes.
Yeah, we're connected with all the other centers, especially the New England Adult and Teen Challenge centers. We're connected with the directors. We see them every 3 months at graduation. So if we do know, if a student of ours has mentioned, I really like to give this information to my family, we definitely give them that information as well. So it is amazing to see, the fact that her daughter was able to get help and, really come to Jesus and then provide that for her mom. Yeah. The next story I'm going to share is a recent graduate of ours that we had. She had grown up in the church for the most part. A lot of the times the students that we have come in, they actually, again, like I was saying earlier, have grown up in the church and know about the Bible and know who God is, but don't really know how to have that relationship or have never really put their own relationship into it. They're just kind of living off of their parents' faith. And so when she was growing up, though, she had faced abuse from her stepfather. And that led her down a really dark path. She ended up struggling with all sorts of substances. She tried pretty much everything except heroin. And she was only 14 when she walked through our doors. So she, struggled a lot with understanding what had happened to her and understanding, her own identity and who she was because, she had kind of lost all hope and was using substances in order to try and feel something. and struggling with self-harm and, depression and anxiety. A lot of those things, almost all the students that come in, struggle with some sort of mental health illness. And so we, worked with her to be able to kind of strengthen the relationship back with her mom and, restoring that relationship, and also just understanding, the past and working how to break free from those, holds of trauma and how to work through them. And so she is graduated the program. She's now back in high school. We keep in touch with them after they complete the program. For 6 months after, we do follow-up calls with them. And so she has been calling in on the right times, and she's starting school again. She's having a great relationship with her parents and having open communication. And it's really amazing, to see that. And the last story I'm going to share with you is actually my story. So I am not only the case manager at Bloom, but I'm also a Bloom graduate. So 6 years ago, I walked into the doors of Bloom when I was 17. So I grew up in the church. I, don't remember a time where my parents didn't take me to church. I was involved in youth group and Sunday school and all that kind of stuff, but I was really living off of my parents' faith. I didn't really actually have, an authentic relationship with God. And growing up, I was very introverted, and school was very difficult for me. Kids nowadays, they're not the nicest. And so, going into new schools, I faced a lot of bullying and just a lot of loneliness, and that was very difficult for me. And going into high school was probably when it was the most difficult. When I was in 10th grade, I got really sick. My stomach was hurting a lot, and I kept going to the doctors, like they just had no idea what was going on. It took them 6 months to figure out that I had stomach ulcers due to intense anxiety. So, after that, the diagnosis was there, the physical pain was healed pretty quickly, but my emotional pain was still there. In the course of my 11th grade year, I missed about half of my school year due to being in 6 psychiatric hospitals for depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicidal tendencies. And when I was there, I probably did, for me personally, more harm than good. There just wasn't a lot of hope where I was going. They just tried to find a quick fix and send you home. And so because I wasn't really getting the help I needed, I turned to substances, and I started vaping, and I started smoking weed, and I was trying everything I could to just really fill this emptiness inside me that I didn't know was a God-shaped hole. So when I walked through the doors of Bloom, I was very stubborn. I thought, well, you know what? I've been in all these other places before. I know how to fake it till I make it and get through and get out as fast as I can. But I found out pretty quickly that this was a lot different. You're held accountable for things while you're there. It's not an easy program. You're faced with having to deal with your mistakes in the past, and we faced them head on. And so it was very difficult, but it was also very rewarding, because that's where I was really able to find my true identity in Christ, and really, understand that God had a purpose for my life. So I graduated 4 months after I was in Bloom. I graduated in 2019 of January. So I ended up going back to school. I stayed a year back so I could have a normal senior year, but then that was COVID. So
Oh no!
my senior year was online.
What timing?
But it was still, amazing to be able to just go and finish school. I didn't think I was going to make it till I was 18, and here I was graduating high school with high honors.
Wow.
After that, I decided that I wanted to go back to Bloom and do a 6-month apprenticeship. And so I got to go back at Bloom, and I got to serve as an apprentice and really just kind of learn the behind the scenes. I got to, work with the girls upstairs, do some overnights. I got to learn downstairs and the admissions process and kind of how all that goes out. And after my apprenticeship was up, the director, she had presented me with an opportunity to do a ministry school that her husband's church was hosting, called the Bridge School of Ministry. So I attended the Bridge School of Ministry for 2 years, and during that time, I was being able to really dive into the Word and really understanding, what I believe and what I feel called to, because while I was in Bloom, I felt God placed in my heart that He wanted me to be able to help, adolescents who have struggled with the same things that I have gone through. And so after I finished my 2 years of the Bridge School of Ministry, or BSOM like we call it, I was given the opportunity to come back and work at Bloom as the case manager and biblical mentor.
Fantastic.
Which is where I am now. Yes. Bloom definitely really helped me just learn how to come into myself and really understand the things that I was struggling with. And, I love the fact that, you guys talked about the stigma, because the church that I grew up in, I didn't even know really mental health or what it was, and didn't really have any resources. So I think it's awesome that, you guys have that availability and to be able to do that. So, and now I want to open it up for questions, just kind of see, questions about the program, questions about my story, or anything like that.
How long have you been a case manager?
So I started working at Bloom, and I was just the biblical mentor, but I've been a case manager for about a year now.
A year? You sound like you've been doing this for 10 years. Oh my goodness.
I
should be very proud of yourself. Amazing.
The one thing that I really, it's not a question, but the one thing that I really like about everything this morning is that God worked it out, that everything is so intertwined. Absolutely. Yes. Every single one of them, they work together so well. And it is just so great to have that, the knowledge that we now have that last week we didn't have. That you have the resources right in our backyards without even realizing. People we can talk to, people we can call that can help you to, to have that wellness and that peace of mind that your family member or you yourself can be taken care of.
And we never know, because of the way things seem to be going with our church. We have an older population in our church. However, there are a lot of people with little kids. And those little kids are going to become adolescents. And those adolescents can very well have multitudes of problems. And they have those problems already with kids in the Sunday school, children's church, certain personality things that are going on, troubles. And it's good to have this knowledge so that there can be resources to fall back on.
And be identified too, because now you kind of like, you see certain behavior, and it gives you a little bit more of a platform where you can say, okay, I'll keep an eye on this behavior. Instead of trying to because sometimes the way you talk to them, makes a difference. You understand what I'm saying? You said you fake it until you make it. You understand? And it's like everyone, as Laura talked about, that follow-up, and you have that follow-up, because they all it makes a big difference. That there's somebody looking out for you. So it doesn't matter whether we are the 2-year-old or the 102-year-old. There is someone who cares for you. And I guess that's why we had all of these beautiful scriptures and these things this morning, because it's all about people striving and thriving.
And hope.
And hope.
And your hope. And what a blessing just to see.
Living hope.
Living hope and the purpose and the plans that God has for our lives. If we just surrender that our lives to Him, it works. And you're living proof, and I'm so grateful that you came today to share, because you just kind of like brought it all together. And we're just so grateful for each and every one of you that have shared today. And, thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
Emma, that's good because, being that young right there and actually getting it like that, it says like this, your pain has a purpose.
Yeah.
Our pain has a purpose, and when a young individual comes out and shares a story like this, and then the next younger person that's coming along know that they're not alone.
Right.
And as Jeremiah said, the plans I have for you is to prosper, a bright future and everything like that. And by you sharing this right here, and hopefully anybody that's listening to this on Facebook can hear the testimony from each one of these ladies right here that took their time out to share right as first, and as everybody else is joining here. Whoever didn't come, y'all missed a blessing by not coming here. But hopefully y'all can listen to it on here and go back and listen to these ladies share everything they share right here, because that time they took out is very valuable right there. We appreciate y'all ladies.
Yes, we
and
do.
coming to share this right here.
So we have lunch for everybody in the nursery, and if you want to talk with any of us, we're all available. Yeah. So thank you very much, and we also wanted to thank all of you for coming. Make sure I'm giving you everybody the right. Emma, this is for you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It looks great with your pink.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you, my dear, for all of that wonderful information. I just feel like we just got a gift today from all of you. And thank you so very much, because this is just the beginning of what you guys started here today. So thank you. And thank you, Carol.
Absolutely. So look out, because we will be calling on you again. Yes, we will be. Okay.
Yeah, so, Lord bless you all, yeah. So please join us for lunch, yeah. Yeah. And you can go grab food and come back out here and sit down and fellowship with us if you are able, so. Okay.